Hello again, and welcome back to another video where today we won't be doing any sound design, we won't be doing any audio implementation, but instead we're going to be looking at dialogue editing. So I've decided to make a kind of little mini series on dialogue editing, focusing on the basics for now, and then moving on to some other stuff as we go along. We're going to be using both SoundForge Pro, I'm using SoundForge Pro 12, but I think 13's out now. Either way, you should be able to, use either or. We're also going to be using Izotope RX. I'm using Izotope RX Elements 6. You can use any version of RX really you want. I'm just using Elements because I can't afford a higher version. And I thought, if for anyone else who can't afford the, the more premium version of RX, it might be a nice place to start with the basics of Elements, and people just kind of dip their toe in the water a bit. So today we're going to look at the process of top and tailing your dialogue, which is a very basic process. All it means is we want to chop off everything before and after the take we want to keep. So starting in SoundForge, let's first find the audio we're going to be messing around with, and let's import it into this empty project. So the file I'm going to use is one I quickly made up beforehand. It's dialogue edit practice line 2. It's just a WAV file of me speaking a line that I'm going to trim up and show you how you can edit with. So let's quickly start from the beginning and play you what this audio sounds like.
Hello again, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be taking this recording that you're listening to now, and we're going to be chopping it up in order to learn about dialogue editing.
Cool, there we go. So obviously we're going to want to edit this take, but if you had an audio file with multiple takes on, you'll obviously want to pick out the take you want to keep. So in SoundForge, what you can do, if I quickly minimize this sound file by clicking the minimize button at the top right, is once you've scrolled through your audio and found the take you want, let's just say, for example, I only wanted to keep this section here. With the edit tool selected, which is this one up here, you can highlight an area, hold control on your keyboard, drag it away from the original file, and you can make a new one with just the highlighted area. You can then maximize this file and you can make more edits to it, or you can save it and you're good to go. But we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be using, so let's just quickly get rid of that. We're going to be using this file, the original one. So in SoundForge, there are two ways of trimming audio. The first way is by doing it automatically with SoundForge's auto trim / crop tool, which is under the process tab, as you can see here. So let's click on that. So the way it works is that you select a threshold, both for the start and the end of the audio file, or the attack and release of it. You basically want to decide at what level you want to start cutting off your audio from. So at the moment, I've got my two thresholds set to -38 and -37 dB. So this means that anything before the first time that this audio file reaches -38 dB will be cut off, and anything after the last time the audio file reaches -37 dB will also be cut off. Once the cuts have been made, you can also decide if you want to fade in the audio files after a certain amount of time. As you can see, the default is set to 20 milliseconds. So in this case, once the first cut has been made and the audio file now starts at -38 dB, a 20 millisecond fade will be added so that the audio file now starts at -infinity dB. And this is obviously to prevent any clicks or pops as the audio starts to play. So just to demonstrate how this looks, I'm going to quickly drop the fade into 0, and I'm going to find quite an extreme threshold. I'm going to set it to about -16 dB. I'm just going to click OK, and you can see the front has been clipped until the first point has reached -16 dB. So if I click the home button on my keyboard to move the cursor to the front of the audio file and just start zooming in, we can see where the cut's been made. Obviously, we don't want our audio to start like this. We want to have it start at a 0 crossings point. Otherwise, we're going to hear a bit of an abrupt intro. So if I quickly hit Control and Z to undo that, go back to my auto trim tool, and now add the 20 millisecond fade in and hit OK. And if I click home again and zoom in, the trim has been made in the same place, but now it fades in for 20 milliseconds, so that we won't get a kind of abrupt click as it starts to play.
So now if we have a quick listen to it. Hello again, and welcome back to another video.
It kind of works, but it feels a bit rushed. So we're just going to click undo again. We're going to go back to the tool, and we're going to change the threshold. So let's say we'll go about 40, 36, somewhere around there just to test it out. We'll leave the release threshold as that is, and we'll hit OK.
So now if we test our audio, hello again and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be taking this recording that you're listening to now, and we're going to be chopping it up in order to learn about dialogue editing.
Okay, so not too bad. The intro worked really well. However, I feel like the release cut off a little bit too much of the last word. So I'm going to quickly undo that. Go back to the tool. I'm just going to adjust the threshold. So let's drop it down to about 43. Try that now.
Learn about dialogue editing.
There we go, that's a lot better. Now with game audio, it's very important that you trim your dialogue very close, or in fact, as close as you can to the words themselves without actually cutting them off. You want to make sure you don't leave any empty space at the beginning or at the end, because this audio will need to be triggered instantly and heard instantly by the player. If there is, say for example, 500 milliseconds of just empty space, there's going to create a little delay between when the audio is triggered and when the player hears it. Obviously that's going to pull them out of the experience, so we don't want that. As well as this, the more space in the audio file means that the audio file itself is going to be of a larger size and take up more space in the game. File space is a very precious resource in video games, so we want to make sure that every bit of data counts. And if we can help it, make our audio as small as possible. So it's always worth checking, just having a look at where your audio starts and ends, so to make sure that whilst it is very close to the words, you're trimming up as much as possible without taking any of the dialogue out. So alternatively, if you don't want to use the auto trim method, you can manually trim your audio yourself. This might take a little bit more time, but hopefully it'll be a bit more accurate. So with the edit tool selected, we're just going to find the beginning of our audio, zoom in a bit, and we're just going to find the space where we want to start trimming our audio. What you can do is hold Control and use your mouse wheel to zoom in so you can really see the low peaks. Now, I'm guessing just by looking at this audio that this small bit here is the start of the breath, and then the larger peaks here are the rest of the word. So let's quickly check that out.
Hello again.
Okay, yeah, so this is the beginning of the word hello, so we want to keep that in, but this breath won't be needed. So let's try and get as close as we can to the word hello and start trimming. So we'll go with about here, and we'll start dragging our cursor along to highlight an area. Zoom out a bit more, and then drag some more. And just keep doing that until we highlight the beginning of our audio, then hit Control X. Then we can hit play to test our audio.
Hello again and welcome back to another video.
That sounds pretty good. Now SoundForge actually has a really cool tool where you can test your edits before you actually cut anything from your audio. Once you have an area of your audio selected and highlighted that you want to remove, just hit Control and K on your keyboard.
Hello again and welcome back.
And it'll give you a quick demonstration of what your audio will sound like without the area you selected. So that sounds good to us, so we can go ahead and hit Control X to get rid of it. What we can also do is quickly zoom into the beginning where we made that edit, and we can add a little fade if we wish to, just to play it safe. It's very important that when you add fades, you make them as small as possible. You don't want like a second long fade, otherwise you're going to hear the voice fade in and it will be very obvious to the player. So to add a fade, I'm going to click on the event tool at the top here. Now the event tool is another way of cutting your audio and trimming stuff out, but it also allows you to add fades. So I'm going to quickly hit the home button. I'm going to zoom in, and then by clicking the top left corner up here that says fade offset, I'm just going to add the tiniest little fade, only about 2 or 3 milliseconds, if that. Just quickly zoom out and test the audio.
Hello again and welcome back to another video.
Great, you don't notice the fade and it sounds quite natural as the voice comes in. All that's left to do is trim at the end, so let's go to the end, let's zoom in, and I think we'll go about here maybe, just to play it safe, and just double check we're on a 0 crossings point, so about there. And then we'll start highlighting and zooming out. And once you've highlighted your section, hit cut, have a listen.
About dialogue editing.
There we go, pretty good. And then if we wanted to, we could zoom in again, hit the event tool, and just add a teeny tiny little fade of a few milliseconds. And have one more listen.
Editing.
There we go, cool. Sounds nice. It doesn't sound like the last word has been abruptly cut. Cool, there we go. And then from there, we would just hit Control S to save it, or we go to File and hit Save. And this would overwrite the old file with this new one. Alternatively, you can click Save As to create a new copy of your new edit and keep the old one if you wanted to continue using that for other reasons. Cool, so that was top and tailing in SoundForge. Now let's quickly look at how you might do it in RX. So I'm going to open up and drag my file into RX. And what you notice instantly about RX is the fact that it has a spectrogram, which is a really helpful tool when it comes to dialogue editing. It's going to come in really handy later on in some other videos, but you also get a traditional wave waveform, as you can see here. So the idea is that the waveform kind of shows you the audio over time, but the spectrogram gives you an idea of how intense some of the frequencies are, where the bottom of the spectrogram is your low frequencies and the top are the high ones. The brighter colors mean that the frequencies are more intense and louder, and the darker, bluer colors mean that they're quieter. You can adjust how much you see of each by adjusting this little slider in the bottom left, so we can either see more of the waveform or the spectrogram, but for now I'm just going to leave it in the middle. So you've got three main selection tools in RX. You've got the time selection tool at the bottom here. We can press T to quickly select that. You've got the time and frequency selection tool. We can quickly press R to select that, or the frequency selection tool, which is F. So starting with the time tool, if you highlight an area of the audio, you can see it's locked to the timeline at the bottom of the screen. The time and frequency selection tool is a bit more free-flowing. You can select as much time or as much frequency as you want. And then the frequency selection tool restricts you to a certain amount of frequencies, which is on the right, this little colored line here. There are more selection tools which we'll be looking at later on, but for now we're going to stick with the time selection tool. So we're going to select a section of our audio. We're just going to zoom into it. With RX, by the way, you can zoom in with the mouse wheel, but it's important to note that where your mouse is on the audio will determine where you zoom into. So if I move my mouse over here, it's going to zoom into the right of the already highlighted area. So for example, if I want to zoom into the cursor, which I've put here, I'll just hold my mouse over the cursor and use the mouse wheel. That was something that threw me off a little bit when I first started using RX, so I thought I'd just point that out. So once we've zoomed in, we can move our mouse wheel over to the decibels on the right, and we can zoom in with the mouse wheel to make them larger if we wish to. Alternatively, we can hold shift and use the mouse wheel, which zooms in on both the frequencies and the waveform. But again, just find a section you want to start trimming at. So we'll start about here, and then highlight your area, zoom out, and once you've got it all, highlight everything, drag it over, and you can hit Ctrl X to cut it. Now let's zoom in again and see if we can use the fade tool. So to fade, the first thing we need to do is select an area we wish to fade in from. So I'm just going to do this little tiny area at the beginning here. In fact, I might even make it a little bit smaller, just like that. Then on the right under utility, we're going to click fade. And we're going to select fade in, and then we can choose a line which we can fade in with. We can go logarithmically, linearly, but I'm just going to leave mine as equal power and hit process. And there you might have noticed a little change in the frequencies and in the waveform, which means it's worked. So let's zoom out again. Just going to lower the waveform a bit, and let's test the audio. So now let's just click somewhere to make sure we haven't highlighted an area. Let's click home to bring our cursor back to the beginning. Let's press play.
Hello again, and welcome back to another video.
And it sounds pretty good. So let's do the same to the end. Going to highlight this section here, zoom out, and just get rid of it. Then I'm going to zoom back in. I'm just going to add a small fade. This time make sure I've selected fade out, hit process, and then zoom out again and listen to the end of it
in order to learn about dialogue editing.
Okay, so there we go. That was obviously very, very basic stuff, but the idea is I kind of want to make these videos very digestible and easy to jump into no matter where you are. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully you're looking forward to more of this. I've got a few more ideas for some videos, so make sure you stay tuned if you're interested in learning more. Apologies, by the way, for the lack of uploads recently. My PC was actually struggling to turn on for some reason. It wasn't displaying on my monitor. I think it was due to external hard drive issue that I had plugged in. It was going a bit funny, but hey ho, we're back up now, and hopefully we can do more of this sort of stuff, and we'll jump back into the and in-game sound series, maybe even do some sound design tutorials. Who knows, they're always fun. But yeah, I've been Henry Scott. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.